What's going on, y'all? It's J Smo Reviews here, back at it again with another video, man. Bringing you guys today, finally, our first piece of NOME 14 content. Well, I did do my NOME 14 wish list, kind of projecting what I hope would be on the card. I was right about a good amount of it, by the way, which we'll talk about. But now the full card is announced. 6 battles, in my opinion, probably the best URL card on paper since maybe Civil War 3, or at least like all things considered, me looking forward to it. And that was Twerkin' Real Sick, Fonz versus Nitty got moved onto that card, Rock versus Slade, etc., etc. So that was December of 2022, so it's been a minute. Obviously, there's been pretty good cards since then. I thought Summer Madness 13 was like a solid card on paper, but I'm very impressed with what Gnome's got going on here. Very EFB-centric card as well. This is looking like we had the gun titles SM back a couple years ago, and now it looks like we'll be having the EFB Gnome. Only one battle here that doesn't include a current EFB member. So many different things to talk about, and I figured instead of starting with a regular predictions video, which, trust me, very soon we'll have the predictions video out too, thought I'd start a little different, ranking the battles on the card that I'm least interested to the ones that are most interesting. Goes without saying, these are all top tier versus top tier matchups. I don't think there's a battle right here that doesn't matter, anything of that nature. So something is going to have to be 6, but I'm not trashing the battle. It's just based on my interest level and just kind of looking at what here are the big players on the card, who's under the most pressure, who is the best style matchup, things of that nature. So without further ado, we'll start with, in my opinion, although good, the least interesting battle on the card. So starting from the bottom of the list, and in my opinion, the least interesting, because as I said before, still stakes to these battles in this particular one. There's still positives to it. Just for me, the one that there's other battles I'm looking more forward to, and that would be Swamp versus Miss Hustle. Now, like I said, kind of talking about them, the two things I'd look at is kind of quality and maybe style matchup-wise going in, and then also the stakes of the battle and the pressure. When you look at this, their form coming into the battle, how they've been battling, is fantastic. Really can't ask for it to be much better. Miss Hustle, coming off of winning her first Woman of the Year belt. Her last battle was a one-rounder that she choked versus Shank Prezi, because I know someone's going to want to remind that or throw that in. But her chess performance on volume, really one of the better material-wise you're going to see from her ever. And that's coming off of a year where she just proved herself to be maybe the best woman currently in battle rap. So obviously, there's a peak there for Miss Hustle. Performance-wise, great. Punching-wise, she's improved a lot over the last couple of years. And then you look at Swamp, he's also coming off of a huge milestone, ironic battle versus Averb. The grudge match, the level it was, the fact that he was good, if not great, for 3 rounds straight, the dominance in the victory. It could be the most important win, or really the best performance of Swamp's career so far, depending on how you grade those things. So quality-wise, they're both coming into this battle as good as you want it, like in terms of their momentum, their current form. So why is it for me it's the least interesting? And if that just comes down to a style clash, in my personal opinion. I just don't. They have called each other out for a little bit, so there would be it's not a grudge in the same way that obviously maybe a Jazz and a Miss Hustle is. We know how many people are asking for that rematch, or how a Swamp and a Verb just was. But there is noise there. They are both 2 top-tier battle rappers. I just don't know what the topic of conversation is. Obviously, they have the ability to just go bar for bar, and I think it could be a great battle. But I think Swamp is at his best with a little bit of like an angle to work, or a little bit more of a conversation to have. But I've also seen him have a battle like that versus Chef Trez, where he just went straight up bar for bar, and that battle was incredible, and it can go either way. So quality-wise, there's still always the chance of this being a great battle on the card, because you're dealing with 2 great battlers in form. So I'm not even as down on it in terms of what it could be quality-wise as maybe I once was if you asked me about the matchup. But there's not the pressure that maybe some of these other battles have. Maybe the one above it, you could flip-flop here at 5 and 6. But it just doesn't have the style or pressure factor that I think a good amount of these matchups are going to have over it. So for me, if I had to choose a battle I'm least interested in, it would be Swamp and Hustle. And then from there, we can move into number 5. So you had your first EFB representative here with the First Lady, with Miss Hustle, and then another EFB battle here with T-Top versus Danny Myers for me at number 5. And this is just classic top tier rec. Another one that even goes more long term with how long these two have called each other out. Like I said, it doesn't just because you've been calling out someone for a minute, it doesn't really give that grudge feel. It could be a battle that we've been waiting to see, could bring some excitement, but I wouldn't consider either of these first two, although battlers have exchanged words, to be some type of grudge match or anything with that innate other level of competition that starts maybe affecting legacy or talked about a little more. However, it is one of the last top tiers that it feels like either of them has to battle that's not, facing another legend from another league or something of that nature. And it's a style clash. You get a Danny Myers, who we know what he's going to do, very animated, punch, bar heavy, as the years have went on, more on the pocket heavy and maybe scheme heavy at times kind of approach. We know rebuttals will be a factor when it comes to Danny Myers. And as for T-Top, what he's doing for me currently in battle rap is what brings this a little interest level above Swamp and Hustle. Because if you really look at it, T-Top is without a doubt having one of the top 2 or 3 years in battle rap in 2024. Chef Trez battle is incredible. The performance he gave, the level of victory on bullpen. But that's not, while that is standout, you still have things like the Snake Eyes win. That was a good win. Went out to the UK and battled a UK champion in Gemini. Had a good battle over there. Battles Twerk, probably some of the weakest of his footage, but a win on Twerk is still going to count for some level, even if it's deducted points, because we know what the quality of that battle is. Still good. Another 3-rounders, we haven't even mentioned, kind of his sprinkled on work, if you will, versus Jay, that guy, where he had a great performance out in KC. 1-rounder versus Dice that he had a good performance in. Really, his only blemish so far is a Young DZ 1-rounder on a UW card that most people don't remember, if I'm going to keep it a stack. Obviously, just can't be choking the way that he did. But overall, T-Top has had a powerful start to his 2024, and Danny Myers is another very worthwhile opponent to add to that resume. It feels like the first top tier look for Danny in a minute, where I feel like he's going to be fighting with someone that could bring him to his A game, but still give him competition. But it doesn't have, similar to Hustle and Swamp, and you could swap either of these battles of 5 and 6. I think while they are good battles, no question, it's not to the level of these other 4 that we're going to speak on. And I just think pressure-wise, stakes-wise, and just where I can see the battle capping out, I just have a little more faith in the battles above it. So not really any bad things to say about it. I just prefer some of these other matchups, and that's why this lands at number 5 for me. So we are here at the top 4, and listen, like I was saying before, with battles having a little bit more pressure, style clash, these 4 battles are amazing in my opinion. The other 2, very good. These 4, in my opinion, amazing, completely preferential, what you're more excited for, if you're interested in a certain storyline, certain battler, style clash. But for me, at number 4, I am going to have Tay-Rock versus Jerry West. And you'll start out by talking about what Jerry West is doing, because this is obviously the big shot for him, right? He's the one that probably looks to gain the most from this battle, depending on result. And it's his first battle on URL since the DNA performance, which was incredible. It's been over half a year, so it has been quite a bit of time. Feels like we should have even gotten this Rock battle a little bit earlier. But we know that he, overcame a lot of odds. 90-10 underdog, ends up having an extremely dominant and amazing performance on Summer Madness versus DNA. Next test is Tay-Rock, and as he said, it's the biggest battle of his career. It went on NOME, so adjacent to NOME, SM, both humongous marquee events that can change your legacy, and it's a tough fight. I mean, Tay-Rock has obviously been battling a lot more frequently, a lot more different levels of tiers in the past couple years, but I think you can go to say that Jerry, just Bill Collector, A-Ward, there's opponents that you'll debate, but Jerry is definitely in that top percentile of tough opponents Rock has taken in the last couple years. I think style-wise, I'm not going to say that there's a particular weakness that he'll bring up, but Jerry's improved so much as a puncher. I mean, he's really right outside maybe of some of the top 5 punchers in battle rap if you just look at the film of what he's done versus Foots, versus Lou Castro, versus DNA, and etc. All of that work from the last year or two, incredible haymakers. We know how performative he can be, creative. There's always the potential of a prop or 2 in the battle. There's just so many different ways that he can attack, and he angles a little bit. It's not fantastic. Probably the one part of his game that isn't the strongest, or we'll say getting to that elite factor, but all-around ability, and that's what makes him a good matchup for a Tay-Rock, who we talked about T-Top earlier being on a great run, and the only guy who for most is probably on a better run in 2024 is Tay-Rock. We know what he's been doing. God, I can't even name all the battles right now, probably without stuttering over it, but from Prep to Bankhead to Sirius Jones, Bill Collector, A Ward, the Loso battle, so much good work, and Jerry is another great name to add to that collection of very good performances. Although I personally have Rock losing a battle, I did have him losing to A Ward. He won the judge result on that, and he has not taken just a flat out clear L so far. Will Jerry be the first to do that? We'll see. But when that motivation comes, you got a guy on a potential Cody run. You got a guy who's still trying to, if not fully solidified for someone top tier, trying to super solidify it for maybe that more casual fan base. What better way to do it than possibly beating or having a fantastic battle with, in many people's opinions, the greatest battle rapper, if not right now, ever. So a lot to gain from Jerry pressure-wise, even for Rock, for how complete his career is with this Cody race. A lot of pressure for him, and that's how you end up with great battles. The way I'm talking about it, it could be above 4, but for me personally, at number 4 right now. And then at number 3, maybe the co-main event here from the way it's announced, but another super great battle in my opinion, and that is Geechee Gotti versus Fonz. I like this battle. It's a battle that when I was doing my wish list, some of these I was able to end up predicting. Rock and Jerry was on there. I'm trying to remember. I think I put Danny versus T-Top on there. Obviously, Lux and Nitty. I'm happy that got moved to NOME. All these battles, but Geechee versus Fonz. I originally thought it was going to be Fonz versus John, but this is an even tougher matchup in my personal opinion. What can you say? Fonz in particular, kind of like Jerry versus Rock, he's the one that stands the most to gain here, and while Jerry may be an underrated puncher, nothing underrated about the way Fonz is punching. He is easily one of the best punchers in the world right now, probably number 2 currently. I don't know. I'd say he might be number 2 currently behind Nitty. Well, you could have that debate between him and Av, right? It's definitely a close conversation. But all he's been doing is proving it for the last couple years. I remember a couple years ago, it was a little before the Nitty battle, I was worried about Fonz. Kind of some of these results, not trying when he's battling down, a couple choke losses versus top tiers like JC and Av. He wasn't, blowing the roof off the building. And now the last few years, Shotgun Shug on SM, similar to what Jerry did to DNA, in an even more contested kind of 50-50 match going in, grudge match, win, makes a highlight of it. Mac Myron battle, makes a highlight of it. A little bit of a grudge there. His Chef Trez battle earlier this year, to me, is still the best battle I've watched in 2024. So saying that Fonz is walking into this battle red hot is a little bit of an understatement. I mean, he's one of, really just bar for bar, has been in Cody's side, right? Like rankings, really just rapping some of the absolute best shit in battle rap. And I really don't know who's going to beat him, but if anybody has a good chance, it's Geechee Gotti. And particularly, even though Gotti's last battle with Losa, I didn't really think he was trying like that, I also watched this man pack up Ilmac this year. That's the range that he can show. And similar to that of a Tay-Rock, you could go off of recent transactions, but he's one of the best ever. And that's kind of, I'm expecting a great level, elite level Geechee Gotti for this performance. He's not in that same Rock scenario where there's pressure for a Cody run. So we're talking about a 3-time Cody here, right? But I just think that for particular matchups that he respects, he's going to show up and be great. He's been very good versus the UM1 class so far. The Easy battle, great performance. The Jay the Nightwing battle, even if you have him losing, very good performance. Might be forgetting a couple other bad news in that UM1 class. Great performance. Swamp is in that UM1 class. You see what I'm saying? So I think that you have another great performance coming here versus Fonz. Fonz needs this battle to keep his trajectory going. At the very least, a great battle, which he's been producing great footage no matter what. And I can always count on Gotti, particularly versus these UM1 guys, to show him the ropes maybe. Real talk versus punching. We'll see how it matches up. I think the style clash is one of the most interesting of the card. And for me, just a great battle. So that leaves you with the last 2 battles of the card. And if you watch, you probably know what I'm going to have at number 1 already. It should be a little obvious. But at number 2, runner-up for the most interesting for me is Coffee Brown versus Jazz. Got to give it up for the ladies, man. And for me, it comes down to a line that Coffee used versus Jade. And it kind of encompasses some of the interest here where she said, referring to the Wody Big 3, her Hustle and Jazz, goes with the Kendrick route and says, fuck the big 3, it's just big me. And I love that energy Coffee's had. And listen, she started to carve out a Hall of Fame career for herself. All 3 of these ladies are tied with now 1 Woman of the Year belt, which I think is interesting. And this kind of completes that trifecta of them battling. Granted, Coffee and Hustle battled for like 15 minutes, kind of aggressively, didn't finish their battle. And then Jazz versus Hustle have battled. That battle kind of stinks. The footage is all chopped up and whatnot, and Jazz won. But Coffee and Jazz hadn't seen each other. They've talked a little bit of shit now. It definitely feels like if it's not a grudge match, it's right on that edge. And even if it's not a grudge for maybe like more personal reasons. When people really don't like each other, it is a competitive, it's going to change kind of the way things are working in terms of the hierarchy of women's battle rap. Well, if you already thought Jazz is number one and she wins, she could stay there. And if you already thought Coffee was better than her, right? So it wouldn't change for you, but it matters. Major bragging rights, a legacy match, particularly for Coffee, but it definitely matters for Jazz a lot, particularly because there's more doubt on Jazz's name than I think there has been before. You look at last year, those performances versus Kay, Nitty, and Twerk, although you could have her in a range of results there, but I think people saw that and saw, in her third, she's angling, but it's really not some of her best angling. Punching is what, for the most part, worked in those battles, and they were more competitive. She lost a couple, right? So people were saying, maybe Jazz has lost a bit of a step, but I think they're forgetting what Jazz the Rapper looks like versus other female battle rappers, and that's why the fuck she's referred to the way that she's referred to in our sport. Her record versus the women is impeccable. One loss, a clear loss versus official in a battle that even she was pretty good in that battle. It took an all-time level official to beat her. And then pretty much versus every other lady, it's damn near perfection. And for me, the most interesting factor, well, I think Coffee has improved so much all around and is going to be a tough out for her. How she's improved her rapping ability, her performance. She already was good bar for bar, but she's gotten better there. I want to see Jazz get back to the character assassination angle Jazz that makes her, in my opinion, the greatest woman in female battle rap history. That's when she's at her best, is when she's working that angle and kind of breaking you down. And I feel like, as I said, she angled in those battles versus the top men, but was actually some of her weaker material. Versus the women, her angles tend to be some of the best work you're going to see of the night, usually if she's on the card. I mean, her versus Vixen is the most recent example. That's an all-time masterclass. So I'm excited to see if we get that Jazz back for this battle, because I think that's what it's going to take to beat a Coffee Brown, who is one of the absolute best in the world and turning into one of your, eye-level peers, that to the point that many are going to have her winning this battle going in. Like I said, not going to speak too heavy on the predictions, but Jazz's approach in particular is what I'm interested in. And that leaves you with what has always been the most interesting battle of this card, once we found out it was even on the card to begin with, and that is Rum Nitty versus Loaded Lux. It's God tier battle rap. And when there's a God tier involved, the stakes are just that much higher, because even with someone that's solidified all-time great like Rum Nitty, you get a plate like this and it feels like he could cement it even a step further. Most interesting part by far is the fact that Loaded Lux is versing another writer. Like, you could say that him and Verb was writer versus writer, but I mean, like, this could and should hopefully be a bar for bar battle. There is maybe some legacy talk, approach talk, right? You don't want it to just be general across the board, but more so of a bar for bar battle than Lux has ever been in. He has not really faced another writer, and it's funny because we consider him the GOAT writer for many really good reasons at that. I don't think it's crazy that people have always referred to Lux as the standout number one pen and what it means to be a pen, but he's not faced those other pens. He's not faced the Chillas. He's not faced the JCs. You could even get weird and say he's not faced the Ilmax. He didn't face B-Dot when that noise was there for that run. The best was Verb, and I consider Verb more of an all-around battle rapper than just a straight-up pen. Nitty is a puncher/pen at this point. By far the best puncher, but I'd say over the last couple years, he's gotten more into that detailed writing bag schemes, elongated concepts, and I think that's kind of what made this Lux matchup make more sense than ever. He's the best pen that he's ever been in his career. And it's legacy. You could even debate the winner of this battle. People are going to cite for a best pen of all time argument. And we're getting into conversations like that. That is not just, legacy shifting for each battler. It could shift the way we perceive the overall sport of battle rap. And I expect it quality-wise to have the highest potential to be a possible classic on this card. Beyond important. That's why it's the main event. And for me, that's why it's the most interesting battle on NOME 14. So that is going to be my full little rankings here from my personal interest level of the battles on the card. And, like I've said a few times in here, this is a stacked card. And for me, it's almost really hard to decipher when you look at that 2 through 4 section. When you look at the stakes of like a Coffee and Jazz, and also the stakes of a Rock and Jerry and what that can do for Jerry's career, it's hard to sit there and say one is flat out better than the other. But I'd love to hear your guys' opinions in the comments down below. What matchup are you most excited for? Even what battler are you most excited for to see them perform? Possibly, change a piece of their legacy, upgrade a piece of their legacy. And also, it has been mentioned that NOME is a private event, so it looks like we are getting that small room feel that so many asked for this and can only help some of these battles. There's a few that we'll talk about in predictions may have benefited a battle or two if it was on a big stage, but for this card, particularly a Lux Nitty card and some of these more bar for bar based battles, I just can't wait to see how it turns out. So like I said before, like, comment, subscribe, guys. Please let me know what you think of NOME 14 and your main takeaways on paper from the card. I'm going to catch you on the next one, man. Peace.